In the last 4 Nigerian presidential elections, every single winner had already secured the endorsement of at least one major legacy political machinery before the primary. Not one exception. Not one. Right now, the political class is performing a debate about 2027. There are rallies, there are defections, there is noise on every platform and in every newspaper. But while everyone is watching that noise, almost nobody is asking the one question that actually determines who wins Nigerian elections. Who controls the structure? I am going to show you exactly what that structure looks like, who already controls it, and why by the time you finish watching this video, you will understand that the conversation most Nigerians are having about 2027 is the wrong conversation entirely. Before we go further, if you're new here, Naija Updates 24/7 exists for one reason: to give every Nigerian, wherever you are, whatever region you are from, the political analysis that mainstream media won't touch. Hit subscribe and stay with me. This gets deeper. Nigeria's 2027 election cycle has already structurally begun, not in party offices, not in campaign halls, but in three less watched arenas that most political commentators have either overlooked or underestimated. The first is the APC internal restructuring, which has been underway since the final quarter of 2024. Quietly, methodically, state-level party chairmanship positions have been reconfigured in no fewer than 17 states. This is not internal party administration. This is the foundation being laid for a national electoral machine. The second is the PDP leadership crisis, which on the surface looks like a factional power struggle. At a deeper structural level, it is a proxy war, a contest over which political bloc will control the party's 2027 machinery. The faction that wins that internal war does not win prestige, it wins access. Access to candidate selection, to party resources, and to the state-level structures that deliver votes. The third is the quiet emergence of what analysts are calling third force positioning, political actors who are not necessarily laying the groundwork to win in 2027, but to become indispensable to whoever does. Coalition leverage, not outright victory, is the goal. None of this is grassroots. The evidence points consistently toward Abuja-based power brokers, specifically the intersection of federal executive patronage networks and legacy state governor alliances. Governors, as a class, remain the most under-analyzed kingmakers in Nigerian electoral history. They are rarely discussed as the central actors. They almost always are. Why is this cycle starting now, this early? Because Nigeria's election cycle structurally begins 18 to 24 months before polling day. That means the decisions being made right now will be largely irreversible by the time public campaigns begin. The ordinary voter sees the campaign, the structural analyst watches the architecture being built long before the campaign begins. History makes this clear. In 2015, the APC merger that eventually unseated an incumbent president was completed in February 2013, 2 full years before Election Day. By the time Nigerians saw the campaigns, the outcome was already structurally plausible. In 2023, the Labour Party's performance was historically significant and genuinely popular, but it collided with a structural ceiling. No pre-existing state-level machinery in the north, which holds the largest single block of registered voters in the country. Popular energy met structural accents, and structural absence won. There is one structural variable that has correctly predicted every Nigerian presidential election outcome since 1999, and it has nothing to do with polling, popularity, or party manifesto. I will tell you exactly what it is before this video ends. To understand how Nigerian elections are structurally decided, you have to understand the 4 institutional layers where the real contest takes place. Not at the polling unit, not on television, here. The first layer is INEC, the Independent Nigerian Electoral Commission. INEC's independence is constitutionally guaranteed, but its operations are not constitutionally insulated from political origin. Its chairman is appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. This does not mean INEC acts with bias. It means the institutional composition of INEC at any given election cycle is never politically neutral by origin, even when it is professionally neutral in execution. That distinction matters. What matters even more is something almost no analyst discusses: INEC's continuous voter registration data, specifically the geographic distribution of newly registrants. The party that tracks this data carefully, identifies where new registrants are concentrated, and invests in mobilizing those communities, wins what I call the invisible votes, the votes that no opinion poll captures because they come from people who have never voted before. In 2027, those invisible votes may be decisive. The second institutional layer is the judiciary. The 2023 election permanently changed how we should think about courts in Nigerian electoral politics. What we learned is that legal challenge is no longer a post-election recourse. It is a pre-election strategy. Legal teams are assembled before polling day. Grounds for challenge are constructed and prepared before results are announced. This is not a commentary on judicial integrity. It is an observation about how the political class has learned to use the judiciary as an institutional instrument. In 2027, the legal dimension will begin before the first vote is cast. The third layer is the National Assembly. The most consequential and least discussed legislative lever in Nigerian electoral politics is amendments to the Electoral Act. Any change to the voting method, to result transmission protocols, or to party primary rules between now and 2026 will structurally advantage one side over another. The question is not whether amendments will be attempted, they will be. The question is who initiates them and what they actually change beneath the surface language. The fourth and most powerful layer is the governors' bloc. Nigeria's 36 governors are not merely political figures. They are the logistical infrastructure of any national election. They control state security cooperation during voting, they control the local government area appointment pipelines, and LGA chairmen are the street-level electoral army. They control discretionary state funds that flow during campaign season through channels that formal audits rarely capture. The governor who supports your candidacy is not giving you a press statement. They are giving you a ground operation.
There is a constitutional ambiguity at the heart of all of this. Section 14(3) of the Constitution mandates federal character in government composition. But no equivalent obligation applies to party primaries or coalition building. This means the political architecture of 2027 will be assembled in the largely unregulated space between constitutional requirements and party internal rules. That space is where elections are actually decided. The most powerful figure in any Nigerian election is not the presidential candidate. It is the person who controls the most governorship alliances. And right now, that person has not yet publicly declared for 2027. Let us talk about who benefits, who is exposed, and what the strategic map of 2027 actually looks like beneath the noise. The incumbent executive advantage in Nigerian politics is not primarily about incumbency itself. It is about something more specific: access to federal appointments in the 24 months before an election. The historical pattern is consistent. Presidents who control federal appointment pipelines during that period convert those appointments into political loyalty at state and local levels. A minister here, a board chairmanship there, a federal contract in a swing state. These are not randomly distributed, they are strategically placed. This is not corruption in the simple sense of the word. It is a rational structural exchange between the executive and the political class, and it has worked in every electoral cycle since 1999. Three categories of political actor are currently structurally exposed heading into 2027. The first is legacy opposition figures who built their national profile on a single election cycle but have no sustainable party machinery beneath them. Popularity without infrastructure is a ceiling, not a foundation. The second is governors who are term limited in 2027. The moment they leave office, their structural leverage dissolves. Their political successors may not inherit their loyalty networks intact. The third is third-party movements with genuine popular support but no LGA-level presence in the Northwest and Northeast, the two zones whose aggregate registered voter population makes a northern ground game structurally decisive in any national contest. Now, the numbers that matter most in this analysis. Nigeria's registered voter base is approximately 93 million people. In 2023, Total valid votes cast were roughly 25 million, a turnout rate of under 30%. Think about what that means. Nigerian elections are not decided by who is most popular among the general population. They are decided by who most effectively moves their specific voters to polling units on election day. That is a mobilization problem, not a popularity problem. And the infrastructure to solve a mobilization problem does not exist at the national level. It exists at the LGA level, and LGA chairmen are appointed by governors. The current political map rewards any candidate who can hold their home base and secure a credible coalition partner in at least 2 of the 6 geopolitical zones. No candidate has ever won a Nigerian presidential election without winning at least one zone they were not expected to win. The strategic question for 2027 is not who is popular. It is which zone is genuinely contestable and who is currently quietly investing in it. Earlier, I mentioned one political actor who has done something every previous president-elect also did at this exact point in the electoral cycle. That action is this: they have quietly cultivated a working relationship with at least 3 sitting governors from outside their home zone, not through public alliance, but through federal patronage channels. The names are not the story. The pattern is the story. The most analytically important actors in 2027 are not yet publicly visible at all. They include business interests whose federal contracts depend on the continuity of a specific economic policy direction. They include security sector figures whose operational independence is protected by specific political configurations. They include Northern Emirates and Southern traditional institution networks which make no public statements but whose mobilization capacity at the community level is structurally significant in ways that no opinion poll measures. When you hear a political analyst say the 2027 race is wide open, what they usually mean is that the surface is fluid. They are correct. What they are often missing is that the structure beneath the surface is not fluid at all. It is being assembled piece by piece in appointment letters, in governors' offices, and in federal contract offices right now. Now, if what I just told you surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know what you think before we get to the part that changes everything. Step back from the political strategy for a moment, because what is being assembled in Abuja has direct, tangible consequences for every Nigerian in every region of every background. If 2027 consolidates power further in the federal executive through either a dominant party victory or a coalition operationally controlled from Abuja, the already asymmetric federal-state relationship deepens. This is not an abstract constitutional concern. It is a practical governance question. State governments that are politically subordinate to Abuja have less negotiating power over revenue allocation. That directly affects road infrastructure in the northeast, healthcare delivery in the south-south, education funding in the southwest, and agricultural investment in the northwest. The political outcome of 2027 is a resources outcome for every Nigerian community. The political uncertainty of an election cycle does not pause the economy, it redirects it. In election years, federal capital expenditure shifts towards politically contestable states. Infrastructure projects accelerate in swing zones and stall in settled ones. This is empirically observable in Nigerian budget implementation data from 2014 to 2015 and from 2022 to 2023. The political decisions being made right now in Abuja will determine which communities see federal resource flow over the next 4 years. The market trader in Onitsha, the farmer in Kaduna, the civil servant in Calabar, these are not observers of this political contest. They are its direct economic subjects.
There is a deeper danger in 2027 that is harder to quantify but critical to name. The most dangerous thing about an intense structural political contest is not violence. It is the deliberate mobilization of identity as a substitute for policy debate. When structural competition is intense and the stakes are high, the incentive to activate ethnic and religious loyalty increases sharply. The antidote is not to pretend identity does not exist in Nigerian politics. It does. The antidote is to name the structural interests beneath identity.
Nigerians who understand the economic logic of a political coalition are far harder to manipulate than those who see only ethnic or religious signals on the surface. Every time a Nigerian election has turned violent at scale, the violence has been concentrated in communities where the economic margin between political outcomes was highest, not where ethnic tension was highest. This distinction matters enormously for how we understand what is actually at risk in 2027. For 2027, watch specifically the states where incumbent governors cannot constitutionally run again. Those gubernatorial transitions are the highest risk political moments in the cycle. They are the points at which loyalty networks fracture, patronage chains break, and the mobilization infrastructure of entire states becomes temporarily contested. Electoral insecurity in Nigeria does not follow ethnic maps, it follows structural disruption. Nigeria's 2027 election is not only a Nigerian political event, it is an event with international dimensions that affect every Nigerian, including those of you watching from outside the country. The United States, United Kingdom, and European Union have each calibrated their engagement with Nigeria around the same underlying interest: a stable, investable Nigeria that does not require expensive diplomatic intervention. When Western governments speak about democracy promotion in Nigeria, their operational definition of a good election outcome is not the election that produces the most progressive result. It is the election that produces the most predictable result, one that both sides accept and that does not generate a governance vacuum. This is a more modest standard than the rhetoric suggests, and Nigerians should understand what international observers are actually watching for. A contested or disputed 2027 election, one that ends in prolonged litigation or genuine political instability, carries real costs for Nigeria's foreign direct investment profile, its relationship with the IMF and World Bank, and its capacity to negotiate on debt restructuring and energy transition financing. These are not abstractions. They translate directly into the exchange rate, the fuel price, and the cost of food on every Nigerian table. Political instability in Abuja is economic instability in every market in every state. For Nigerians in the diaspora, in the United Kingdom, in the United States, in Canada, this is not a spectator event. Diaspora remittances constitute a meaningful share of Nigeria's foreign exchange inflows. Political instability that weakens the naira reduces the purchasing power of every pound or dollar you send home. The 2027 election is, for the Nigerian diaspora, a financial event with direct consequences for your family's quality of life. There is one foreign government that has significantly increased its diplomatic engagement with Nigerian political actors in the last 12 months, and it is not the United States or the United Kingdom. Its interest in 2027 is neither democracy nor development. It is infrastructure access. I want to address directly the strongest arguments against the framework I have laid out in this video, because the purpose of this analysis is not to be persuasive, it is to be accurate. The first challenge is this: Nigerians are politically awakened. The 2023 election proved that popular movements can reshape the political landscape. This is true in its description of popular energy, and it must be taken seriously. But it is incomplete in its analysis of structural outcomes. The Labour Party's 2023 performance was historically significant. It also demonstrated with precision where structural gaps set the ceiling of a popular movement. Ground-level mobilization in the north was insufficient, and the party's registration timeline preceded the movement's peak momentum, leaving structural deficits that enthusiasm could not fill. Popular energy and structural readiness are both necessary. In Nigerian electoral history, neither alone has been sufficient. The second challenge is this: INEC's reforms have made elections more transparent and harder to manipulate. Genuine progress has been made in results transmission technology. The BVAS system represented a real improvement in transparency at the collation stage, but the residual vulnerability in Nigerian elections does not lie at the transmission stage. It lies at the earlier stage of voter mobilization, a stage that no technology currently addresses. Getting registered voters to their polling unit on election day is still a human infrastructure problem, and that problem is still solved or not solved by governors and their LGA networks. The third challenge is this: The political landscape is too fluid to be predicted with this level of confidence. Fluidity at the surface is real. A candidacy can emerge, alliances can shift, events can intervene. But the structural variables beneath the surface, voter registration geography, governorship alliance counts, federal patronage flows, LGA mobilization capacity are measurable, historically consistent, and predictive. Analysts who have tracked these variables have consistently better predictive records than analysts who track polling numbers and public sentiment. I want to be direct about what this video is and what it is not. It is not an argument for any political actor. It is not an argument for any party, any region, or any candidacy. It is an argument for every Nigerian, North, South, East, and West, to understand the structural game clearly enough to demand accountability from every actor within it. A country that understands its own elections is harder to manipulate. That is the only conclusion this analysis supports. Let me tell you exactly what to watch in the coming months if you want to read the structural map of 2027 in real time. Watch governorship alliance patterns, particularly from the third quarter of 2025 onward. Any sitting governor who publicly repositions their party affiliation or signals a cross-party alliance is moving a structural piece on the 2027 board. These moves are never impulsive. They are pre-negotiated, often weeks in advance, and announced only when the counter-arrangement is already secured. Treat every gubernatorial realignment as a data point, not a drama.
Watch INEC's administrative appointments and its voter registration data releases. The geographic distribution of newly registered voters, particularly youth registration in the Southeast and the Northwest, will reshape the mathematical base of 2027 in ways that current polling cannot capture. These numbers are public. Most people are not reading them. You should be. Watch National Assembly composition shifts. When significant legislative blocks move, when senators or representatives defect in numbers, it is almost always because they have concluded that a particular presidential candidacy is consolidating structural momentum. Legislators do not move toward causes. They move toward expected winners. Their movement is not an endorsement. It is a survival calculation, and it is one of the most reliable leading indicators in Nigerian electoral analysis. Watch federal contract and appointment patterns through 2025 and 2026. Track which states receive disproportionate federal executive attention. This is the pre-campaign campaign. The resources flowing before the campaign begins are more structurally revealing than any manifesto launched after it starts. And watch third force ground-level activity very carefully. If any alternative candidacy begins investing in LGA-level organizers in the North, not rallies, not social media strategy, but field organizers, treat that as a serious structural signal, not performative politics. Rallies are visibility. Organizers are infrastructure. They are not the same thing. There are three signals that would indicate structural escalation rather than normal pre-election positioning. A Supreme Court ruling on any electoral matter with partisan structural implications, an attempted amendment to the Electoral Act in the current legislative session, and a major APC or PDP split that is not resolved within 90 days. Tactical fractures in Nigerian parties resolve within weeks. Structural fractures do not. 90 days is the threshold. The long-term governance implication is this. 2027 will either consolidate Nigeria's current political architecture or fracture it sufficiently to create a genuinely new competitive landscape. Neither outcome is inherently good or bad. The quality of the outcome depends entirely on whether the process is understood by Nigerians, contested on legitimate grounds, and accepted by a sufficient majority across all regions. An election whose outcome is rejected by large portions of the country is not a stable outcome, regardless of who wins it. Earlier in this video, I asked, what is the one structural variable that has correctly predicted every Nigerian presidential election since 1999? The answer
is the net governorship alliance count. Every Nigerian president since 1999 has entered election day with the declared or functional support of more than 18 sitting governors. Not 15, not 17. The structural threshold is 18. Watch who reaches it first. That is the real race of 2027. We opened this video with a simple observation. In 4 consecutive Nigerian presidential elections, every single winner had already secured legacy political machinery before the primary. The question we were really asking is whether that has already happened for 2027. The evidence suggests that the structural game is not approaching its beginning. For the actors that matter most, it is approaching its conclusion. The public campaign that begins in 2026 will be, in structural terms, a confirmation of decisions already made, not a contest still to be determined. That does not mean Nigerians are powerless. It means the opposite. Nigerians who understand the structure can demand accountability at the structural level, not just at the campaign stage where the decisions have already been made. Hold your governor accountable for how they deploy the structural leverage your state gives them. Track your voter registration, watch the appointments, watch the alliances. Follow the structure, not just the noise. The 2027 election will be decided by Nigerians. The question is which Nigerians and at which stage of the process choose to pay attention. If this analysis gave you clarity, share it with one Nigerian who needs to understand what is really happening. Like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Naija Update 24/7, we never stop watching.